Boom, and we're back. Welcome back, everybody. Another Tuesday night chat with the Muskrat. Tonight, I always do that backwards. We're back with Mr. Ted Ellenbecker. Ted, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited about tonight's show, guys. We're going to be talking about probably the number one favorite species of catfish for most anglers. If you took a poll, most anglers will say that the flathead is their favorite. So
I think so. Yep.
Yeah.
I think more people consider it a trophy,
Well, and I'll agree with that. Like even when we're out fishing, you catch any fish of the day, but if you catch a flathead, it doesn't matter if it's a pound or 50 pounds. It was awesome. You always add that to your details. You're like, oh, we caught 24 blues. We caught a flathead.
Yep.
How big was it? It was only a pound, but we caught a flathead.
We still caught a flathead. Yep. It's that way up here too.
Yeah. So I'm excited to dig in tonight and hear a little bit about strategies and tactics and your thoughts on targeting these elusive apex predators. And I guess that's really why the appeal, at least for me, is because they are the apex predator in most of our freshwater systems.
Oh, I think so. They're comparable to the northerns and muskies if you take a good hard look at them. They really are.
Yeah. Well, before we get started here, I'm going to kick off and say hello to some folks. I wanted to do a couple things here real quick. I'll wait till we get a little more folks in here to do this, but Tommy Long reached out to me. He's got a tournament coming up that he wanted me to share with everybody, a lot of our local folks here in Ohio, and I'll put the details on that here in just a little bit. But Ted, Tommy Long was in here. His screen name's Minnow Dunkers, and he says, Ted, much respect. I'm usually fishing and listening. I've been a kid at a candy store listening to your knowledge. Thanks for all that you're sharing.
Wow. Thank you for the kind words. I hope you get something out of tonight's info.
He is also a multi-species angler. He chases everything that swims. Currently, he's been coaching a high school bass fishing team, and they went to state championships, and he's had a lot of success and a lot of fun working with these kids. And even though we might poke fun at bass fishing and all that here, at the end of the day, these kids in general, getting out and catching anything, getting hooked on fishing. And that's what I tell everybody. You get these kids hooked on fishing, they can't afford drugs and all this other stuff. It's too expensive.
Yeah. Well, if it bites, it's a good fish.
There you go. That's good words.
That's it.
Well, we got also fishing the Mid-South hanging out with us, 922 Crappie Barbecue. Lisa Breed, Catfish Ladies in the house as well. Pontoon Jody, welcome in. Let's see. Ed Jenkins has joined us. What's up, buddy? Thanks for stopping in. Crappie Dave Darren. There's Paul Edmonston. There's a local guy for us. He might be interested in this tournament. Dick Over Stinks in the house. Lance McCoo guy. Uh-oh. Mama's listening out there. She's watching the kids play outside. We kicked them out of the house. They're just too loud. Catch Fish with us. What's up, my friends? They got some exciting. My mom's calling me. Mom, the show is on. She's watching the show, or at least trying to. She just got moved earlier this afternoon. She's out of the hospital and got sent to a rehabilitation facility to start working on rehabilitation to get her back to full action. But so really happy to hear about that. Mom's been progressing quite well. Really pleased with how well she's doing. So continue the thoughts and prayers. We could use them. She appreciates them, and I appreciate them every bit. So, Mom, if you get tuned in, sorry I didn't take your call. I'm on the tube.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got Mike Greenwell in the house. Kevin Baker, Nuts and Bolts Fishing. Kevin, I haven't seen you for a while, man. Welcome in. Dad's tuning in. He says he is tuned in over here. Dad, I'm not sure. Mom just tried to call. I'm not sure if she's having trouble seeing the show. Maybe reach out to her for me if you don't mind. Let's see. Danny Barry Sports, what's going on? Big Slim 91. Sampy's in the house. Mr. Dave Funk. We come up and fished Hoover this week. I seen the thermocline that you guys had rocking over there. We fished it we fished it pretty hard. We caught a few fish. We didn't break any records, but it was tougher than I expected. See, Greg Burgess is in the house. Hey, there's my River Warrior brother there, Mr. Zach Murray, saying Simplify Marines. What's up, buddy? Thanks for stopping in. He's been super busy with work. They got him swamped. But I tell you, we got his brand new boat out on the water this weekend for this maiden voyage. We put some slime on the deck, and
there you go.
Kind of felt guilty the first time I laid a catfish on the floor of this brand new Sea Ark with this sea deck foam, and it's just so pretty, man. But
slime is good for them, though.
Slime is good. Yeah, we got to work it in. It has a wash down pump on it, so we hit the wash down pump and gave it a little scrub just to make our hearts feel a little better. But yeah, it's a nice boat, man. Let's see. Stonefly 71's in the house. Welcome in, brother. Thanks for stopping by. Let's see. If anybody else I missed right here. There's Tommy. Tommy's saying he's got 5 in the box. Now we need the frog fish. There you go. Thanks for tuning in. Let's see. Well, before I get started here real quick, I see Danny Stone's in the house. I'm going to go ahead and throw this up there since I know that he's listening. We'll go ahead and share this screen here real quick with you guys. This is something Tommy's put together. There we go. This is a catfish tournament coming up on September 14th from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. So that'd be fun. I love fishing at night. This is on Lake Rupert. Wait, is it Lake Rupert or Lake Alma? $25 per person. There's raffles. There'll be 50-50 rod and reel. There's catfish gear. They're even giving away a Sandusky guided catfishing trip to someone there. This is the support the Jackson County 40/8. I don't know what that stands for. Me and Ted was talking about before the show. I'm not sure what that means, but that's a veterans food box, and it's given away at the Wellston American Legion 731. There'll be boat and bank fishing. There's a kids tournament at noon with prizes per age group at Lake Alma. I think the tournament's at Rupert and the kids tournament is Lake Alma because they got a shelter there for the kids. I'll have the details on this if anybody wants it. I'm going to post it up on my Facebook page as well and get it out there. And hopefully we can round up some money and help support these the Veterans Food Box. And so if you have any questions, there's a number down there at the bottom. Contact Tommy Long. That's Minnow Dunkers for most of you guys in chat here. And so we'd love to support these guys and show them some love. So there's that. Let's see who else we got. I think I may be caught up. If I missed you, I see Bugman 22's fish with Jeff Beal. I thought I was caught up, but we won't hold things up too long. We're going to let Ted do what he does, which is talk to us about the Flathead catfish. So if you tuned in a couple weeks ago, you saw kind of how this went. Ted has been doing these presentations. Now, Ted, you've also got a couple seminars coming up this weekend as well, correct?
Yep. Saturday in Sioux Falls with Game Fishing Parks at the outdoor campus. We're doing 2 seminars Saturday afternoon, and they'll be broadcast live also. So
yep. So that's going to be broadcast live over on Catfish Weekly. So this Saturday they'll be live over there. I believe it starts. You say 1 o'clock our time, 2 o'clock yours.
Yep. 1 o'clock Central. And that'll be a Channel Cat seminar. And then at 2:15, we get into talking about walleyes.
There you go. So, guys, if you keep your notifications on, check out Catfish Weekly this weekend and get some more awesome information from Ted as well there. But tonight we're going to talk about flatheads because,
we are.
They're flatheads.
They are. Yep.
And
they're the good.
I got to be honest. I'm kind of like a kid in a candy store here myself because I got to be honest. I tell myself every year, and Zach's in the same boat as I am, where I'm in his boat actually. But we tell ourselves every year, man, you know what? Next year we are going to target flatheads more. Right? We love catching flatheads, but we always find ourselves chasing blues. Just the tactics that we use, and we find ourselves not targeting flatheads as often. And I really don't. I think it's lack of confidence. lack of confidence in knowing, where to be, what techniques to use, or the sitting still. We love to be on the move constantly. Dragging and drifting is our favorite. Bumping obviously is our favorite. And you can catch a few flatheads that way, but we just don't have the consistency like we do with the blues.
Well, with the information on this one, you don't usually catch the number of flatheads you do like blues or channels,
Right.
obviously. But at least, at the end of the day, you can go, okay, I did it right. And that's important too. That's where a lot of your pleasure comes out of, and satisfaction. So you don't go home going, what if I did? That's not fun. So this will get you there though, to where at least you'll know you're doing it right. Then it's up to the fish. Some things you can't control.
Well, whenever you're ready, buddy, I'll get started there.
Okay. Well, yep. As Roger said, this is going to be a flathead catfish specific seminar, and we're going to get into some of the basics, the 101 stuff, but there's a lot of masterclass information here too. The information is about 50-50 mine and 50-50 that I've collected through research that other people have done. So I'm not going to claim credit for all of it, but I will hand it over to you and I'll take credit for that. A lot of people, well, let's do it this way. Also, some of the information, if I say, we'll say riprap, or I say log jams, you don't have them on the body of water that you fish, just substitute stuff. This is all adaptable to any body of water that you want to use. So, and some of you guys are pretty heavy duty fishermen already, so I hope I brought my A game with this one. I think you'll find the information worthwhile though. Roger, we can click over. Next, I guess. There you go. This is just kind of a heads up, the regulations on flatheads on a lot of waters, different states have been changing, and you got to kind of pay attention to it. In a lot of waters, you don't need new regulations. Some waters do. Up here, we put some on. Nebraska has some regulations in place, 1/30, and catch and release only on branched oak. Minnesota's 1/24, I believe. That kind of thing. So just pay attention because they are changing, and it's not worth losing a license, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Next one. Okay. What we're going to talk about tonight, first off, some people, and we just kind of brought it up, think that catching flatheads is hard or difficult, and it's not, in my opinion, really the case. If you understand them, they are just different. The reason they are hard to catch, or people think that, is because most people are brought up fishing channel cats, or they're started fishing channel cats, or they're started fishing blue cats. Very few kids or younger people are just go right out on the river and start fishing flatheads, And if you want to consistently catch flatheads, obviously you need to target them. They are different than the channels and the blues completely, and we'll uncover all of that as we go along here. Also, I think they are the neatest freshwater predator there is, right up there with muskies and northerns, and I fish both of those too. Flatheads are pretty incredible. They've got some habits that are just genetically inbred right into them that we're going to discover tonight. The diel period, high sight fidelity, some of the hormonal changes that they go through the year with their strategies to survive that people don't realize. Feeding habits, the diel period, we're going to get into all of that. We're going to talk a little bit about baits and how to improve your bait for a flathead, a little bit. Rigs, a little, but not a lot. Pretty simple, actually, but we will talk about it. As I said, the high sight fidelity, and what that is, real briefly, and then we'll get into a little more detail. If you're familiar with salmon or other fish like that, up north in Canada, Alaska, the fish on the coast, the salmon on the coast, they'll go out to the ocean for 3 years, and they come right back to the same creek they were spawned in 3 years later to spawn.
Yeah.
And it's all just, it's sensory organs. They can actually smell the minerals in that water. And they'll go up and down the coastline, they'll pick that up, and that's the creek they go back into. Believe it or not, flatheads do that, and we will get, not on the ocean obviously, but in fresh water, and we'll cover that a little bit more. We're going to cover the 3 types of structure that flatheads use, and a lot of people don't really understand this or have never been told this basically, and it's important for the angler to know if he wants to pick the best structures to find these fish, and especially the bigger fish. The diel period we're going to discuss in detail. This is a weapon. It's a bad habit these fish do, and it's a weapon you can use to get on them consistently and stay with them once you find them. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And Roger, we can go to next. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Okay, first off, just a note here for structures. Now this research was done by game fishing parks in South Dakota on the rivers up here, but I'll pass it along. What they found when they were collecting samples was that the flatheads, 10 pounds and over, the main thing they all had in common was the structure they were on had a wood element to it. The smaller fish were picking on rocks and other stuff. The bigger fish, 10 pounds and up, all the structures they were found on had a wood element of some sort. Down tree, log jams, whatever, but a wood element involved. So that's worth something to know, you know. Yeah. To consistently catch them, obviously, you need to target these fish to consistently catch them. Now, I do understand that in some waters, there's a high number of flatheads, and obviously that makes it easier, just like anything. If you got a big population, things are easier. Up here, the population's not that big. We can't use a lot of rods. We use 1 or 2 rods. So we have to really target where we put our baits, and that's where this information kind of comes into. You need to know your body of water. Bodies of water that historically have produced big flatheads. We'll do it again, and that comes along with the high sight fidelity, and we'll discuss it a little more with that and their patterns through the year. Your tackle, obviously, you guys already know, most of you do. You need to adjust your hooks, your line, your tackle to the surroundings you're fishing in, okay? I mean, heavy cover needs heavy line. Big fish, big bait needs a bigger hook. Smaller fish, you know, lighter tackle, okay? If you need to cast distances on these fish, say you're fishing reservoirs and you're on the shore, a lot of times I'll go with a braid line. I can get a lot more casting distance and a lot more line on my spool with a good heavy braid, okay? And normally I'm fishing more open water on a reservoir than I do on a river too. So the more information you have, and we're going to get into details now, but the more information you have, the better decisions you're going to make on the water, okay? And that's what this is all about, okay? You're going to have to adapt it to your water, but we're going to give you a lot of information to work with starting right now. Can we go to the next one, Roger? Oh, you're quick. All right, we're talking about the predator, right? Flathead as a predator. I'm going to give you an example real quick. If you look at the head on a predator, you look at the head on a flathead, a muskie, a northern, a bass, a walleye. There's a lot of things in common. The eyes are all positioned higher on the head to view up. They have an an underbite where the lower jaw comes out beyond the upper jaw. This allows the fish to come up from underneath, okay, and strike, or to strike better from straight behind. It makes it a little more difficult for them to pick off the bottom. An example of this, a big flathead, if he's coming in on a fish that is on the bottom, he will turn sideways. He'll flip over on his side to hit the fish. He won't come at him straight right side up, okay? They like to have the bait about 8 inches off the bottom. They'll cruise about 6 to 10 inches off the bottom normally, just for your information. How it hunts. This is going to get into the diel period. And this is something that a lot of people don't know. It's been proven through tracking that flatheads prefer to hunt. They prefer to feed in under 9 feet of water, okay? And if you look at this, you know, if you reason it out, it makes total sense. These fish are built to come up from underneath. All right, if they're in 20 foot of water, and we'll say there's a shad up on the surface in a current, how is the flathead even going to know it's there? And how is he going to catch it if he tries to come up on it? You know, it's harder. But when you're under 9 to 10 foot of water or less, and some of my biggest flatheads have been caught in under 4 foot of water. They can sense that fish above them, and they can pin him. They can hit him. Okay, and we're going to get into the feeding platforms, and this is where that'll come into it. But anyway, the main feeding depth on a flathead is under 10 foot. Now, that doesn't mean you aren't going to catch them in a 50-foot hole. You will, obviously. You can catch them on a dock with a night crawler too. But their main feeding, when they're up on a feeding platform, it's generally going to be under 10 foot of water. So if you're going to try to catch them on their night moves, kind of think about that too. A lot of people walk out like on these wing dikes for flatheads, and they throw right straight into the washout hole at 50 foot deep or whatever, and you may catch a fish. But on those wing dikes, a lot of times the flatheads are sitting on those rocks right under your feet. Those wing dikes that drop off, they're right under you. They're not out in the hole, they're right underneath you, as a rule. These fish are one, if not the most structure-oriented fish there is. And we're going to talk about the log jams and bridge pilings and everything here in a second. We switch over. Rigs and bait. Like I said, this is a rig. It's a slip rig, and it's about 95% of the time this is what you're going to use. That's just the way it is. This rig's been adapted for a lot of ways, for bumping, for drifting, for doing everything else. You can put a slip float or a peg float on the leader line if you want, obviously to get some lift off of it. I generally don't in the areas I fish. On this one, I've got an egg sinker. You got the flat no rolls. You've got a lot of different types of sinkers that will fit snag freeze, that will fit your presentation. So this rig can adapt to your favorite presentation and just do that. I'm going to talk a little bit about hooks real quick. Mm-hmm. A lot of people talk real big hooks, heavy this, heavy that, and that's okay. But if you're using live bait for flatheads, which I'm going to recommend here in a minute, the heavier the metal, the thicker the diameter of that hook, the more damage you're doing to the hook, or more damage you're doing to the bait, and the quicker he's going to bail out on you and die. Okay? You need enough of a hook for the fish you're going to come in contact with, but the lighter hook you can get by with. Now, I'm not talking size, I'm talking diameter of metal. Okay? The lighter you can get by with, the better your bait's going to work for you. I'm not saying go ultralight on them, but just kind of pay attention to it, okay? Adjust your hook to the fish you're going to contact and the size of your bait. Try to keep them healthy. About bait. Okay, up here, we're kind of limited. We can't transport live shad. We can't use moon eye, gold eye. We're pretty well limited to crick chubs, white suckers, red horse suckers, crick chubs, bullheads, and bluegills, green-eared sunfish, pumpkin seeds, that type of thing, okay, for legally. So, in my opinion, the best bait I can get a hold of up here, anyway, is a green-eared sunfish. They're very durable. They're tough as nails. Half the time you got a good one on your line, you're going to think you got a bite. You don't. It's just your bait doing what he's supposed to do. Yeah. So I like that. Next would be maybe a bluegill. After that, I would go to a small bullhead just like this. And this one, you're going to take a look at him. This is kind of what happens when a smaller flathead or channel grabs your bullhead and scrapes him up real good. And I'm going to talk about your bait right now. These scrapes on this fish do a couple of things. And you should think about scraping your bait before you put him in the water. Let's say you've got a bluegill or green-eared sunfish and you hooked him up. He's alive. I would take the blunt side of your knife, the blunt edge, and scrape a dozen scales off his tail, off right above his tail. Because what this does, this fish now releases pheromones that tells anything that approaches him that he is injured. Okay? Now, a lot of people think that isn't going to make a lot of difference, but I'll tell you what, how many times have you had a fish pick up your bait and drop it? And what I think is this is your 1/10 of a second that I talk about in the 100-yard dash. If this fish gets the right taste when he grabs it, you got a better chance of him hanging on to it rather than spitting it out. You got a better chance of him inhaling it rather than spitting it out. That's my opinion. It's not going to help all the time, but if it adds one fish a day or that big fish of the trip, I'd say it's worth 10 seconds of just putting a scrape on the back end of the fish, you know. And a bullhead the same way, back towards the tail on this little fish, same thing. Just scratch your skin just a little bit, okay? People say, well, they're not going to notice that. I'm going to tell you a secret about scent and how powerful, or taste, whichever you want to call it, how powerful it really is. There was a bass organization that did a test in an enclosed tank trying to figure out how scent affected the bass, okay? Well, I'm going to tell you what it did, but if it affects a bass this way, how does it affect a catfish? I mean, okay. They found out that the bass could sense one drop of a scent in 500 gallons. Not anything visual, just the scent. They drop it in a 500-gallon tank, one drop, and that fish knew it was there. Okay, that's a bass. So now times 10 that on a catfish. All right.
At least, yeah.
At least. Yeah. What I believe on that is that 1/100th of a drop on a catfish in 500 gallons, and he'll know it's there. Okay. So if that fish comes up to your bait, and your bait is emitting just a little bit of scent, enough for him to taste when he nudges it, you got a much better chance of him taking your bait in, or just rather than just swimming away. Okay. So that's where I come off with scraping them just a little bit. I want them to put out pheromones. I want to open up the amino acids so these fish think that this is an easy meal. That's all there is to it for that. Okay. Now, obviously, you guys have to pick your own bait. And some people will say that they prefer cut bait for flatheads. Well, I don't. I don't know how to be nice about this, but I just don't. Flatheads, you know, the adult flatheads are over 10, 15 pounds and bigger. They want live bait if they can get it. I'm not saying they won't take a cut bait. They do. A couple of things will trigger that. You get a winter kill. Say you get a shad kill. Well, you get a shad kill and there's dead shad laying on the bottom of the lake. Every fish in the lake's going to be eating on those. I mean, that's just it. It's the buffet, okay? But the big fish want the live bait. If you're going to fish with cut bait, I would recommend a couple of different presentations that keep the bait moving. And a lot of people that catch flatheads on cut bait don't understand, you know, they may be fishing with a presentation that is doing exactly this, but they don't really realize it. If you're using, like, say, a three-way or a float and you're drifting, or you're pulling slow or bumping, whichever, but you're moving and you've got a float, if you cut it into more of a fillet than a chunk, now you've got a little bit of swimming action, you've got some motion. If you go by a flathead's head with that, he's going to feel that. He's going to feel that vibration. To him, that could be a live fish. It's going to smell like fish, going to taste like fish, you know, and he'll hit it because it's moving. If it's laying flat on the bottom, I don't think, in quiet water, I don't think you're going to get a lot of hits on cut bait unless they're feeding on a winter kill or a big fish kill of some sort. So if you can elevate, okay, your cut bait, I think you're going to do better with the flatheads and then moving it, even a float in a current, just to keep that bait kind of swimming in the current like this rather than sitting on the bottom. I think will activate more bites for you if you want to do it that way. So that's that. And you're on that. So I'm going to switch. There we go. So now we're going to get in a little bit to the seasonal patterns. And this is where the high sight fidelity comes in. First off, I believe it was Kansas a couple of years ago, they did some research on it was actually about a 200-mile strip of river. It was below the dams where the fish could move basically for 200 miles either direction before they come into an obstruction, like a dam on the Missouri River or whatever, okay? And they found out that the fish they were testing basically stayed in a 25-mile range of ground zero where they caught the fish. So say they caught him here, so 25 miles upstream, 25 miles downstream, that's the range, basically. Now, some fish can go a little further. There was on a survey that where they had, it was 40 fish, I believe, bigger fish. And one fish one fish out of 40 went over 25 miles. And that fish went 100 miles. Now I have to kind of question that. I mean, I don't know if he got caught and put in a live well and transferred somewhere. I don't know if he was involved in a tournament. I don't know if he got hit by a boat. I don't know what happened, but that fish went 100 miles. But 39 of them went under 25 miles. Okay, so you've got a homebound group of fish, right? Kind of homebodies. And this is where, when I'm talking about water that has historically caught big fish in, you know, where they found them, if you don't know the body of water and you do your research and somebody says, well, yeah, the North Bay on this reservoir or this dam on the river or whatever, you know, a few years ago, I know they were catching big flatheads out of it. Well, I'll tell you what, if it was producing flatheads last year or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, if nothing has interfered with the movement of that species, it's still going to have flatheads in there. I mean, if it hasn't dried up or they put a dam up or whatever, they will still come back to that. Okay. And that is proven in a research that they did in Illinois, where they had kind of the same thing we have here. You got two tributary rivers flowing into a big main river. Okay. And in the fall, they tagged with radio telemetry tracking devices a bunch of fish in these two tributaries. And some of the fish stayed in the tributary to winter, but most of them obviously dropped back about 15, 20 miles into this main river. Some of them went downstream, some of them went upstream. When they tracked the fish the following spring, the fish that came out of tributary A went back into tributary A. The fish that came out of tributary B went back into tributary B. Okay, so this is why I'm saying if this lake or this area had produced fish in the last few years, they're still going to come back there, unless something is preventing them from doing it. So it's something to think about when you're looking for territory or areas on a body of water. Make sure you find out where historically, even if it wasn't this year, you know, well, 2 years ago they caught the state record over here and this guy did this and this. If that's the fact, those fish are still probably coming back there. The only bad thing about this, well, for up here anyway, maybe not, you know, not on a lot of bodies of water maybe, but up here. The bad thing about this, on our smaller rivers up here, these fish like to come back to even the same log jams, okay, and structures that they were at last year. And we'll get into that when we talk about the diel period a little more. But the problem up here with that is you can go to a log jam this weekend and you can catch 4 or 5, you know, we'll say 10 to 17 pound flats or something like that. And that's great. But if somebody comes in the next 2 weeks and takes them out, that summer, they are not going to be replaced. The fish that have moved for the summer are in their summer grounds. And that's starting like right now. The spawn is going off. They're coming out of their nest. They're going to move to their summer grounds. Okay. So up here, it's important that we let some of these fish go, obviously, on these log jams, because if you don't, they're just going to disappear off those log jams for this year. Now, next year, you'll get some more fish that'll come into that territory and occupy it. But you can clean it out, at least on our little rivers, for the year if you misbehave a little bit, you know. Yeah, so you got to be a little careful with that. The seasonal movement, you know, we're talking about the 25 miles and all this and that. I think, like right now, it's something they don't usually count, and that is the post-spawn movement. You know, they start out in the spring and they come up below the low-head dams here or below the big dams and the big rivers, and they start feeding up to put on some weight to spawn. They move back along the banks, usually within 3 miles of those dams, actually, and they spawn. And then, though, they go to the summer patterns, and nobody even talks about that. And I don't get that because they do move off. While they're pre-spawn, 3 miles from the dam is about right. After the pre-spawn, when you're in post-spawn, then you're looking for structure, and distance doesn't count. I mean, if you can move down 5 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles, whatever, wherever the heaviest structure is, and I'm going to say for my likes, where the heaviest wood structures are, that's where you want to look. And that's starting right now. Okay, it just is. Riprap will work for structure, but if you're going to look for big fish, and we'll explain that a little better in the 3 types of structures, but if you're going to look for big fish on riprap, you better be looking at big riprap. You better be looking at some big concrete slabs or car bodies or something else. Otherwise, it's going to be a nursery and the fish aren't going to do you any good. And we'll talk about that. For winter, some people say you can catch them. I don't know. I think a lot of people, at least up here where we get ice covered, and they say they caught one through the ice, I think they might have snaked it. I'm not going to accuse anybody of that, but I just don't think they bite, considering the divers go down and these fish literally have silt 1/4 inch thick all over their backs. They aren't moving much, you know. So, okay, next. The diel period. Now this, guys, is really important, and you can use this, and I'll explain how, but you can use this. The diel period is the 24-hour feeding pattern for flatheads, and this is really a very species-specific thing, okay? If you understand it, you can use it. You can use it in so many ways. We're going to get into it. When they studied the diel period, this is the feeding pad. Well, okay. I got to start over, Roger. I got excited. We're going to start. We're going to start at night. Okay. Let's go to the next one here.
Okay.
We're going to start at dusk. All right. We're going to talk about the diel period. So these guys had radio tracking telemetry on some fish, right? And they're tracking them. They went out at night at dusk to start tracking these fish, and they found them in their log jams where they had tagged them, you know. And at dark and over the next few periods of time, these fish moved out, all right? And they moved. Now, they moved to what I'm going to call a feeding platform, and we'll get into that. But what happened there is they moved, they went up, they fed, and they came back. And here's what happens. Here's what most catfishermen do, and I do too sometimes. Say you're fishing from shore or you're in a boat, and you're going to set up for the night, right? You go out and you find this big structure. Could be a log jam, could be a bridge, could be some big riprap, could be a wing dike, whatever. Okay, that you pick it. But you set up. Like for me, I set up on big log jams around here. If I'm gonna fish offshore like that, I've got my bucket to put my butt on and the mud to put my boots in, right? Okay. Now I set up above it, and normally, you know how it goes. You guys have done this, a lot of you. About 9:30, 10 o'clock, whatever, the witching hour, sun's down, starting, you get your first bite. Well, that's cool. And you think, okay, we're going to kill them, right? This is going to go really well. 10 o'clock, you get your first fish, 10:30, another, miss one at 1/4 to 11, 11:30, you get one, on and on and on, until about 1 o'clock in the morning. And then everything stops. Everything stops. And you guys have done this if you fish this very often. And right away you go, God, what happened, you know? And if I'm with my buddy that I fish with once in a while, he's right on the phone. He's calling somebody he knows that's fishing 5 miles down, okay? And they go, yeah, what happened? Well, they were biting good. We were just going to beat them up really good. And then all of a sudden they quit. Yeah, well, it quit for us too, you know? We got 4 good ones and it quit. Well, I'm going to let you know they didn't quit biting. They didn't at all. They moved. They went from a staging structure, they went to a feeding platform. Now here's how can you use this? Say you're, you know, on this situation, but maybe upriver from you a 1/2 mile is a rapids or a ripple or a pinch down or a bay on a reservoir with 2 good shoulders that goes back into a shallow bay. That's where those fish are heading. They can move up to 1 mile in the night. One night to get to a feeding platform. And if you know where that is above you, okay, you can intercept those fish again. You can keep that bite going. You go from the staging structure, you go up to the feeding platform. Now, like I said, we're sitting on the log jam, right? And we talk to the buddy and, oh, the bite quit. The next thing they're going to say is, yeah, but they'll start biting again at sunrise. Well, and sure as heck, sun comes up, starts coming up 4:30, 5 o'clock, and boom, rod bends over, you got another fish on, you know, and you're still sitting in front of the log jam, right? Well, they They did, yeah. They did not start biting again. Those fish came back. They came back. And you're going to say, well, they aren't going to come back like that. Okay, when they were tracking these fish, like I talked about before, they tracked them overnight. They tracked them to the feeding platforms. They tracked them back in the morning. And they had fish that returned to within 3 feet of where they started the night before. Okay, where they moved anywhere from a half mile to a mile up, and they ended up back within 3 feet of where they picked them up to start with.
Crazy.
So you can use this. It works very, very well. Next. Okay, the 3 structures I'm talking about. You got the nursery, the staging structure, and the feeding platform. And if you understand these, you just upped your chances by a whole bunch. The nursery, however, is really not anything that's very good for the angler unless you're looking for an aquarium fish. And look, we got a little picture of some small rocks here, some small riprap. Now this is the stuff that a lot of people fish, and it will hold some small fish, and you may catch a big fish coming through. But obviously there's no room between this size of rock for a 30-pound fish to get into. I mean, they just can't. You know, This is a nursery. This is going to be the smaller fish. And yes, you might catch a big fish moving through, but they're not going to hold here. Okay, not a big flathead. The second one is a staging structure. And the staging structure is the type of structure that everybody fishes, that fishes cats. Generally, it's visible. It's a big log jam. It's bridge, pillars. It's wing dikes. Could be big riprap. It could be just a big ripple, a low head dam. It's a staging structure. But a staging structure is also required. If you look down here on the bottom left picture, where we got some bridge piling uprights, a staging structure requires cover, heavy structure, number of elements from the water, okay, and quiet water. This is where they want to rest. Okay, now a lot of people are going to say, well, during the day they're going to be in 40 foot of water. In some cases, maybe, but I've caught a lot of flatheads. I'm not going to say huge, but 20 to 35-ish at 2 o'clock mid-afternoon in structures like this, where I'm dropping the bait right on their head in 5 feet of water. Okay, now they won't travel. They aren't going out and feeding, but and you say, well, you're going to spook them going in there. No, if you do it right, if you go upstream and you let your boat drift back in, okay, to within even almost touching the logs, you put a 50-foot rope, kill your motor, drift back in, and just drop vertical into the holes in structures like this, you will catch flatheads during the day, and you will catch big ones. The only thing you got to watch out for doing that is you have to have heavy equipment, and you got to lock your drag down. You can't let those fish turn around on you, obviously, because they're going to get tied up in something and you're not going to get them. That's just the way it is. But it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the same kind of structure. That's the staging structure. It's the same thing where somebody, in fact, I've sat on those rocks in front of this one before, just like I talked about. And then on the bottom right is the feeding platform that's 200 yards above it. Okay, and we'll go to the next one here real quick. Okay, staging structure. Here's a picture again. We're going to cover these. This has got some bridge pilings. It's got some buildup on the top, some cover. There's a current break. You can just see on the shine on the inside there. Okay, so this has got a lot of stuff going for these fish, and that's where they will hold up during the day. And you can catch them there during the day or night when they come off. But your bite's going to quit as soon as they move out. Now, some people could say right now, well, I've done this and I know what you're talking about, but I've caught a fish again at 2 o'clock and I've caught a fish again at 2:30 and 3 o'clock. Fine. And I'll explain how that happens. If you have a series of small staging structures, a good example would be wing dikes. Some areas up here, we've got wing dikes every 300 yards, 200 yards even on certain areas of the river. Well, you've got fish moving from each of those wing dikes coming through. So you're just intercepting them on their way to the feeding platforms. See what I mean? And on a wing dike, the feeding platform may be directly between the two wing dikes. And I'm sure you've all seen this if you fish wing dikes a lot. There's usually a hump in there where stuff builds up right between the wing dikes. That's a feeding platform. It holds all the gold eyes, the moon eyes, the shad, whatever, suckers, small carp. They live on that little hump, and the flatheads know it, and they will go to that. They won't be in the 50-foot hole. Okay, not after midnight. All right, the next one, the feeding platform. This goes back to when we were just talking about the depth. If you look at this, you've got obviously some rock ripple, kind of like a low head dam, but not really. It's just filling, but it creates a nice rapids, good oxygenation in the midsummer. You've got a current break right to the right outside this picture. You got a hole underneath it. But right here where these arrows are pointing, you can see the big rock up there. There's about 3 foot of water right here. And there's all kinds of, you've seen little carp come up on underneath this stuff. I'm sure you guys have. Where you're sitting here watching the edge of this water and you'll see carp fins and tails and everything else. Well, that's where the flatheads go to feed. And they want they wanted under 10 foot of water. This is a feeding platform. So I would be on that staging structure during the day and early evening. But at night, we move right up to this one, and this is one we use. We'll move right up to this, and we'll put slip floats on, and we'll hang those baits about 2.5 feet under them and let them just swim around in circles out here. And we'll catch flatheads until about sunrise. And then you got to get back to the staging structures. It just works that way. It's very cool, but it does. And it's the only fish I know you can do that with. Sure, some fish change depths. But you can track a group of flatheads from this structure to this structure and back to the other structure, and I think that's just very cool.
I wonder how many of you guys in chat are sitting there going through these slides in areas that look just like this where you fish and thinking, oh, I can't wait to go back and try that. Because I'm sitting there doing it right now. I'm like, I know exactly where this spot looks like on my river.
Yep.
I know exactly where.
Yep. Yeah. It's just a very neat thing to do. So what do you got to do before your next trip? Okay, in my opinion, the big thing with flatheads is you got to decide what you want. With any trip, do you want just to catch a flathead? Okay, that makes it pretty easy. Do you care about size? If you don't, that makes it pretty easy. If you want a trophy, you need 2 things. You need a body of water that has that to offer you, or you're not going to find it. And number 2, you need to locate on that body of water, either through information or your own experience, where or what areas on that body of water have produced big fish in the past. If it has in the past, there's something about that area, there's elements available the big fish want, there will be more big fish coming in there. That's just the way these fish are. I'm not going to say it works all that way for all the species, but it does for this one. You need a bait, and I'm not a real big bait, huge bait kind of guy. I like fish about 8 inches long that I can control in a current. Up here, our rivers are pretty shallow. Like this river right here, that's the Sioux River. I caught my biggest flathead out of that river. A deep hole in that river is about 8 foot. Most of it runs, 3-4 feet, most of it. Log jams will have washouts under them about 6 to 7 feet. And once in a while you hit a bend that's got 8 foot in it. Now that's during the summer. Obviously, like in the spring and this year with the floods right now, it's running about 15 foot deep. But that's not normal.
We could use some of that water down here.
Yeah, well, it's coming your way. and the next one is timing. Yeah. And I don't mean, they bite better full moon, they don't bite better full moon, fish only at night. I'm talking timing with your structure. Okay, if you're going to go fishing midday, you need to find a staging structure, okay, that you can reach, that you can get at and get close to the structure. If you're not fishing into the structure during the day, you're probably not going to have a lot of success because they're not out moving around hunting. Okay, if you're going to go in the middle of the night, you're going to go set up at 9 or 10 o'clock at night and you're going to spend the night there, you want a feeding platform. Forget about depth. Seriously, I know, guys are cringing, they're biting their tongues right now. Depth at night is your enemy. I mean, I'm not saying people, I know people have caught them in deep water at night, but overall, if you're looking for the group of fish, they're going to be in under 10 foot of water. Why do you think people that set trout lines, set limb lines, everything else catch big fish and they're fishing right off the banks? Those are the fish that are moving out of structures into a feeding platform. They're coming up the sides of those banks and they're getting caught on those shallow pools. Same thing. It's kind of the old thing, if you're in a boat, you cast to the shoreline, right? If you're on the shore, you cast to the middle of the river. Well, yeah. But the shoreline is the biggest element. Besides the water, the shoreline's the biggest element in a body of water. And it has the root balls, it has the dugouts, it has the old beaver dens, it has the channels, it has all kinds of stuff, and that's what those big fish are using. So don't be afraid to put your bait in shallow water. We had one this year, a place we call Klondike. We didn't catch him, but a guy that was down there. Okay, we didn't get this fish. He was in 2.5 foot of water below a little feeding area like the one I just showed you. 2.5 foot of water, and he got hit, and you could see the hit. I mean, the fish hit and the water exploded, and it was 52 pounds. And the sun was just going down, wasn't dark yet, but this fish moved right up onto that platform. It was incredible. It was picture perfect. Couldn't have done any better.
I love shallow water fishing.
I do too. It's fun.
Yeah.
And the next one is the out, Roger. That's it. That's quick. And I made it in time tonight. I'm good. I'm great. If you guys got questions, we got time, I think. 10 minutes worth anyway. If anybody's got some questions, let's do it.
Yeah, I did see a question earlier, but that went really, really fast. I just realized it about 10 minutes ago how late it was. I was like, good night. It's going really quick.
Yeah.
I did see. Let me get this off here real quick. I did see a question earlier from Mike Greenwell. He said that they'd had a large log, a big tree come down about 500 yards below their dam that he fishes, and he was wondering, how long? Because last week before we talked about the longer it's there, the more power the element. So he was wondering how long before fish start calling that home.
Well, okay.
In that scenario.
Okay. Below a dam, Mike, below a dam, there's fish moving around dams all the time. If they're running water, you get fish that come back up. And that tree right now is creating current breaks, obviously. It's not going to have dugouts going on. It's not going to have a lot of other elements connected to it. It might be laying in the channel, or it might be laying over some riprap or something, which would be good. So what I would say about that, below a dam, if they're running some water, creating some current, I would probably fish that, but I wouldn't expect it to hold a bunch of fish. You're going to get fish probably moving up the shoreline or moving up into the current that will get in behind that and come out around the shoulder of it, but that would be just because of the current, and it would only probably be because the fish are moving. I wouldn't anchor up on it and sit there for the night, unless it's been there for a year or so. But it'll hold fish. Obviously, if you have a current and you got a big tree sitting there, you're creating current breaks. I mean, that's just the way it is, and fish will use that current break. So while they're moving up.
I don't know how long I don't know how much water you typically get there, Mikey. But I know, like at ours, that within 500 yards, it wouldn't be there a year. It'd be gone.
Okay. Yep.
Pontoon Jody asked, what about throwing baits out on floats? And I think you mentioned this earlier, but like the Patriot James floats, suspending baits directly under a big float. And what your thoughts on that is?
Oh yeah, we do that. That structure that I just showed you, that little feeding platform. We do float baits. We use balloons. We'll blow up little ball balloons and tie them on the line. They're cheaper, but we use them. We'll hang a bait about 2 foot under it. Understand, like right now it's deeper, but normally that's about 4 foot. We'll hang those baits about 2 foot underneath, and we'll put a weight on there, just enough weight to try to keep the bait fish down. And if you can't keep him down or he's just really getting out of hand, clip his tail. Okay, take the tail fin off him. Don't cut up into the meat, but just take the tail fin off him. He just lost his 4-wheel drive, and you will be able to control him better.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's a big deal with under the floats, because they will try to swim into everything.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd recommend clip the tail, and fish vertical if you can. We do it a lot on log jams where we will, like I said, we'll go up above. When we fish log jams on the Jim River here, we run above everything. We go north, we head upriver until we're out of our territory, and then we fish back. That way, going up, we're pushing fish back under the logs. Coming back down, we're stopping the motor 30, 40 yards out from log jams and drifting up to them, tying off the rope as we just about get to the log jam so we can drop baits vertical into the face of it. I'm going to caution you, heavy current, don't do that.
Right.
Okay. Up here, it's a light current. It's not a dangerous current. Even if it washed you up under the log jam, all it do is make you mad, but it isn't going to flip you over. If you got a heavy current, dangerous current, do not do that.
Right.
Okay.
Great advice.
Right. Yep. Vertical's good.
Skip wants to know if you can go over other feeding platform scenarios. So I know for like us, I can only think of one area that looks kind of like what you were talking about, the shallow rapids and stuff. That's up in the Scioto River. But outside of that, we don't have that situation really anywhere.
Okay. Yep. Shallow banks. If you don't know where the platform is, if you've got say you've got some big staging structure down here somewhere, and you've got a shallower bank, not the deep channel bank, but the shallower bank, and you got a couple just smaller root balls or undercuts or whatever, those flatheads will travel up that shallow bank. That's why people put their limb lines there and everything else. The only trouble with that is you're not going to concentrate fish on a bank like that. You will catch fish moving through. You really will. But you're not going to concentrate them because they are just moving through. And that's the thing with the diel period and their movement real quick too. If you know where there's a structure, say a staging structure downstream, but you can't get to it, like up here we have some private land and all that going on, and we can't get to certain log jams, right? Okay, but we can intercept the fish coming out of that log jam. That can be a quarter mile down, but if I got a little ripple up here, I know where I can catch them at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'll wait for them to come. The only problem with that is you aren't going to catch them at sunset. You're going to have to wait till midnight or 1 o'clock till they get there. But you can intercept them like that.
It's kind of like deer hunting, those people that deer hunt, you know the bedding areas, the feeding areas, and you can intercept them in between. The fields they're feeding on might be the neighbors, and you can't hunt it, but you're exactly in the path of where they're going to have to come through to get to that.
Exactly. And it's the same thing with these flatheads. It is. They do this. It's incredible, but they do. And once you do it, you're going to wonder why you never knew about this, because it's fun when you plan it out and you actually hit a staging structure and then you go hit a feeding platform and you take fish off both of them. It's a really good feeling. It's really fun when it happens.
Catfish with Us wants to know, Ted, do you change anything when fishing a lake or reservoir as opposed to fishing the river for flatheads?
Yep. Yeah. On lakes and reservoirs, my favorite structure is the shoulders on a bay. Okay. Up here, when they test like Francis Case, which is a reservoir on the Missouri River up here, where they find their flatheads is back in the bays at night. And they on their traps and that, and they'll be basically on the shoulders, or where, I don't know how else to describe it. It's the shoulder of the bay, the end of the bay where it connects to the main lake. Okay. Normally those shoulders are made up of a different substrate. That's why they're still there. That's why they haven't washed away. So you might have some trees, you might have some rock, you might have some drops, you might have a channel, and those fish will hold in those areas. But again, when they go out to feed, they're going to come up into the bay and go to the back end of that bay. That would be that's my main thing on the reservoirs or bridge pilings, because you've got the foundation of the bridge, you've got a lot of garbage that's been dumped down there, old concrete that's still sitting there, and you're going to have, Well, staging structure, current breaks, everything else going on right there if you got a bridge going over the reservoir. But at dark, they're going to move. They're going to go up to the banks. Points, I would look for just good points that drop near the channel. Maybe something that's got some old timber laying in it. A bay with standing timber. If it's it's a reservoir, it's flooded, you're going to have timber someplace. That's either stumps or standing or something. And I'd be looking for that. And shoulders on the bays. Definitely shoulders on the bays.
Navy Onyx is running in my head right now, Hoover Reservoir.
Yeah.
I know that's what they're talking about.
Yep.
Hey, Ed Jenkins has a great question here. It says, say you have a large feeding platform. Do you use 3 elements theory to narrow down the platform?
Oh, yeah. Spot on a
Within the
spot.
spot.
Spot on a spot. Yeah. If there's a current line coming into that feeding platform, you got to have a bait there. If there's a small channel or a cutout coming, excuse me, if there happens to be a big boulder laying in there, anything like that, you betcha. Spot on a spot. Anytime you concentrate or connect an element, you got a tree here, it'll hold a fish. Sometimes you got a shallow water current here, but if you connect it, now this is going to offer twice as much to the fish, and you're going to have fish there more consistently. So just look at it that way. But yes, you want to hook the spot on the spot together if you can.
There you go. Jeff Beal says apex predators are on the hunt during the night for bait fish in shallow water. Guesstimation 10:30, 11 o'clock. Watch out. Hold on. Could be live action.
There you go. Send pictures.
There you go. That's magic time right there. That's
Yep.
There really isn't too many times of the day that I don't like to fish, except for the dead heat of the day when, like this time of year.
Yeah. Yep.
I just prefer to fish the evening and overnight hours. And if I could pick it completely, I would fish a couple hours before dark and a couple hours after sunset, and that would be my trip.
Yep. Do I got time to do about a 2-minute story here? Okay. A couple of years ago.
Go right ahead.
Okay, a couple of years ago, and this is with the diel period and the high sight fidelity, where it just kind of solidifies it, I guess. I didn't catch the fish, but I was with the guy. I was fishing with him. Okay. About, 4 years ago, he caught a 48-pound flathead. We were fishing. You know the little video I sent you on that bridge pillar, Roger? That's where he caught it, where I caught that fish. Okay. Now see there, that just kind of proves that one, doesn't it? But anyway, he was fishing right there on a bridge pillar, and it has a bit of a washout under the bridge pillar and a current line and a little bit of a channel break. Anyway, it's a great spot. It's right below kind of a rock low head. And this guy caught a 48-pound flathead. Nice fish off it, right? And I got down on the shore under the bridge and netted it for him. We took pictures of the fish and we clipped a fin on him. Okay. And the next year, he was in the same place about a week later than that. And his bait was maybe 2 feet different, maybe, from where it was the year before. And he caught the same fish. Okay. And it had the same fin clip. I mean,
I believe
the fish wasn't much any bigger. He's still about 48 and a half, 49 pounds, but it had the fin clips, same spot, everything else. It's just like, holy cow, 1 year later, but he came back to that spot.
There's some local folks that fish around here on the Ohio River that they have named fish because they can go to their log jam, their home, and they'll say, hey, we're going to run down and see if Fred's home or see if Barney's still hanging out down there. We'll see who's home today. And because it's been proven so many times that they will catch the same fish out of the same log jam or same, structure of some sort. They can catch that same fish over and over again, time and time again, because they go right back to, even if, I've talked to them about, their tournament anglers, and, they pick these fish up and then travel 20, 30 miles to weigh in and release them. And they swam all the way back to that exact same tree and they caught them again.
Yep. They go back. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
There's a lot.
And some other fish do that a little bit. Flatheads are they're notorious for it. They are. Yeah. I mean, it's proven. They're tracked. They do this. Yeah, they will go back this next spring to the same log jam if it's still there.
Right.
This year you catch him here, he leaves for winter, he comes back next summer, he'll go to the same log jam if it's still there. So.
And they're pretty stubborn when it comes to wanting to leave their spot. All right. So like even like this low water situation, or even like in your situation, high water, unless it gets really crazy, they're going to hold their ground to that spot.
Yep. They may get pushed out a little bit, like to go to the bank. Like here, anyway, on high water, the fish will go closer to the bank. Water drops, they go closer to the channel, but it's on the same structure. But it'll be on the same structure. Are they just on the inside or the outside? You know, and that'll be a lot with the water level. Towards the bank, if it's getting high, go towards the channel if it's getting lower.
Yeah. Jeremy said they had some out-of-towners come into their area and snag some monster flatheads in the spring. It's sad to see they took a lot of trophy fish out, buddy.
Yeah.
I know exactly how you feel when we watch these guys pull these hoop nets up out on the Ohio River, and they're full of fish that we would love to catch, take a picture, and release, and we'll never see them again. I completely understand how you feel, brother. It's tough.
It is. Yeah.
It is tough. Pat, by the way, I saw you come in. Welcome in, brother. I haven't seen you for a while. Wish my flats were still here. Yeah. I'm excited. Yeah. I'm ready to go. I've actually, Jackie has been messaging me. My phone has been dinging, and she's like, I want to go and put every single thing he said tonight to a T ASAP. Right now, let's go.
Do it and send pictures. How's that? Yeah. Do it and send pictures. Then we'll have a seminar number 2 and go over all the results.
Yeah.
How's that?
Show and tell. There you go.
Yep.
All right, Jeremy, we watched a commercial guy in Bud Vicksburg. Oh yeah. There's commercial anglers all over the country. Some places got it worse than others, but for those of us that care about the conservation and the future of catfish, it's tough to watch.
It is.
Right here, fish lives matter. That's weird. I get so many comments on this shirt.
Yeah,
it's fun. Well, Ted, we've ran over our hour and happy to do it. But thank you so much for sharing the information. You know your guest is on to something when the chat comes to a complete halt. I actually had to click out and click it back in to make sure my chat didn't freeze, because everyone was hanging on your words so much that everyone stopped talking. There was no chat.
Okay.
It's great. You know that's when people are really glued and hanging on your words is when don't get me wrong. I love seeing chat. I love chat blowing up and interacting with everybody. But you can really tell when somebody's engaged in your guest when chat just comes to a complete stop and everyone's just listening and taking it all in. So thank you so much for everybody who tuned in. And then again, also thank you, Ted, for taking the time to hang out with us.
Thank you.
Lots of valuable information. Guys, don't forget, again, this weekend, Ted will have 2 live seminars over on Catfish Weekly. Be sure to go over and check them out over there. Make sure you got your bell notification on. So when they go live, you can be sure to check it out. And I'm sure that they'll have those videos on their channel from then on out, and you'll be able to go back and watch the replay if you need to.
Yep, they will.
So I saw a few pictures they took. A few looked to be 80+ pound flatheads they took out of there. Yeah.
Netting them or trapping
them? He said snagging them, so I'm not sure what happened. I don't think they were snagging for something else and got them and kept them or what. I'm just assuming. So, well, then again, guys, hey, we'll be back here next week. We're going to tune back in. We're going to catch back up on these questions. If you guys got more questions based on flatheads, you guys get out. You get to thinking about something during this week, or you get to go out and try some of these tactics and see if anything works for you. Be sure to tune back in next week, and we'll circle back around. We'll talk more about some flatheads and answer some questions. Until next time, tight lines. We'll catch you on the next cast. See y'all.
Thank you, everybody.